Hi there, welcome to Welsh Chilli, the channel where you can follow our journey setting up a hot sauce company. In this episode, we're going to have a look at hardening off your pepper plants. We're going to talk about what hardening off is, when to harden off your plants, and the easiest way to go about doing it. Right, let's get going. So before we get started, guys, can you just hit that like button? It'll really help our channel and it'll help us get better rankings with the YouTube algorithm. So what is hardening off your plants? So basically it's getting your plants acclimated to the harsh weather outside. So at the moment you may have your plants in a grow room or maybe on a windowsill or under some lights in the house, and they're used to having this warm, cosy environment. What you're doing by hardening them off is getting them ready to go outside to the harsh environments outside. So that could be the sun or the wind or just the temperature changes in general. Even if you've got them in a polytunnel, you might think polytunnel's quite warm and it's getting all the sunlight. But there's actually a filter inside there to filter out harmful UV rays. So it's not getting as much sun as it would do if it was just outside. Because some of the sun will reflect off it and some gets absorbed into the PVC in a polytunnel or the glass in the greenhouse. So plants can actually notice if they're in a greenhouse and they're not getting the full sun, or if they're in a polytunnel and it's getting filtered. The plants notice that, and they've got mechanisms inside to deal with the harsh sun. So before you bring them out of the polytunnel or greenhouse or from the house to start with, you need to start bringing them out bit by bit. So the plants, they've got like a sunscreen, like we put sunscreen on. The plants over time creates like a protection. It makes the leaves go a bit thicker, and it helps them deal with the harsh sun rays. What we're trying to do by hardening the plant off is make sure that the plant leaves don't get burnt. It's a bit like us getting sunburnt. So the leaves will get really silvery or white marks on it. It looks like they've been fried or burnt because the plant hasn't had time to build up its protection, so it just gets burnt, the same as we'd have sunburn. So before we go on to the next section, can you just hit that subscribe button please, and the bell notification. Cheers. So how do we harden off plants? Well, the traditional way is to take your plants out for 2 hours one day and then bring them back in. And then the next day, take them out for 4 hours and bring them back in. And then 6 hours, and then 8 hours, and then 10 hours. And then after 10 hours, you should be able to leave your plants out all the time. The problem is with that method is if you forget to bring your plants in, they'll get scolded, or if you're busy doing something and you forget about them, then they'll get scolded. So what I like to do is I like to put my time-lapse camera out and have a look at the space and see where the shadows and where the sun reaches during different times of the day. So I'm up extra early, it's about 7:05, and I'm here to set a time-lapse camera. So I've got a time-lapse camera set up here just so I can have a look at the deck and see when the sun hits which part of the deck. So as you can see from the time-lapse, in the back by the fence there, it only gets sun for about 2.5 to 3 hours. So I put my plants there for the first day. On the second day, I moved my plants over here, so it has a little bit more sun before the sun goes down, so around 4 to 5 hours. And then the third day, I moved them right to the center over here. and then I let them there for 6 to 7 hours. And what I did was I moved the plants back towards the back where the fence is for the rest of the day. The day after that, I did the same. I moved them right to the centre of the patio there. And then the next day, I did exactly the same. I moved them to the centre, and I think I left them out for about 8.5 to 9 hours by mistake. But then I moved them back towards the fence and let them out there. And I actually left them out overnight this time too. And then the final day, I just let them out for 10 hours in the middle there. And then the same, I pushed them back to the fence and left them there overnight. So now I put them out for the whole day and the night time too. Obviously keeping an eye to make sure it's not too cold at night time. So there might still be a chance of frost because it's not quite the middle of April yet. But I keep an eye on the temperatures on the weather channel on the internet just to see if we're going to get any frost. So when you harden your plants, you will notice that the leaves will get about 3 times thicker than the older leaves. So the older leaves, they're more prone to burning, and the newer shoots that come out thicker, they'll be more acclimatized to the sun and won't burn as much. So what happens if you've put your plants out to harden and it rains? If it's a warm day and it's fairly warm rain, it's fine. But if it's a cold rain, then it might shock the plants. So you need to bring them in. So what plants should you harden? So me, myself, I'd harden all pepper plants. Even if they've come out of a greenhouse or a polytunnel, you need to harden them. And if you've bought a plant in a garden centre or something, they need hardening too. So just some plants might need a little bit more hardening than others, but just let the plants tell you when it's hardened. So have a look for those thick leaves and go from there. So one last thing. When you're hardening your plants, try and keep them off the ground. There's a couple of reasons why. The ground, it's very cold. So if you can bring them up just half a metre to a metre, then you're giving the plants a bit more of a help. So it'll be about 3 degrees difference between touching the floor and about half a metre to a metre up. So you don't want to stress the plants too much when you're hardening them off. I know you want to acclimatise your plants to the weather, but doing it too quick can kill your plants. The second reason is to keep the plants away from pests, slugs and mice and stuff. They might be crawling around on ground level, so you need to raise them up. So guys, if you really like to support the channel, then we've created a new Patreon site. So what you do there is you can pay a monthly subscription, and we'll give you stuff such as seeds, sauces and rubs every season when we come up with different recipes. So it starts from about $1 and goes up from there. But yeah, if you'd like to support the channel, then go to patreon.com/Welsh Chilli. Thanks a lot. So that's it for this video. I hope you've learnt a little bit about hardening your plants off and why you should do it. If you've got any plants growing yourself, I'd like to know how they're doing. If you just stick a little comment below and maybe share a few pictures with me. I'd love to see how other people's plants are doing. So we'll see you on the next one. But remember, if you're going to go hot, go super hot.